The man who spoke to Teresa's son was just beginning to fall behind the hills, painting the sky in soft gold and fading blue. Birds were calling out one last time before settling in for the night. Keanu Reeves had been driving without a destination for hours. He often did that when his mind felt heavy, when the world felt like too much. That evening, he had told no one where he was going. No assistant, no calls, no scripts, just him and the road. The kind of silence he craved, but rarely found. He was somewhere off the coast, a place he didn't recognize. The road turned from pavement to gravel. He let the car roll to a stop, stepped out, and breathed in the scent of salt and pine. Everything was quiet, almost too quiet. But there was something oddly peaceful about it. Then he saw him. A man stood near a large oak tree just a few feet away from the edge of a small cliff. The wind brushed through the branches above, and the tree leaves whispered like they were keeping secrets. The man had his back turned to the world, one hand gently resting on the tree's rough bark. He was talking, not shouting, not mumbling, but clearly speaking, as if in conversation. Keanu watched for a moment, not because he was judging. He wasn't that kind of person. But because something about it was familiar, the kind of broken silence he recognized deep in his bones. He walked closer. Slowly, the man didn't turn. Keanu heard him say, "I know you remember, even if the world forgot. You're there. When I couldn't breathe, when they walked away. You never did." Keanu's footsteps crunched lightly over fallen leaves. The man turned just a little, and Keanu's breath caught. "Joaquin?" Keanu asked gently. Joaquin Phoenix turned toward him, his eyes soft but distant. His face looked tired, not from lack of sleep, but from something deeper, something that had been growing quietly inside for too long. "I didn't think anyone would come up this way," Joaquin said. His voice wasn't surprised. It was calm. It's like he had been expecting someone. "Even if he didn't know who, I didn't think I'd end up here," Keanu replied, stepping closer. "But maybe I was meant to." They stood there in silence. The wind moved through the tree like a whisper between them. Joaquin smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. People think it's strange, talking to trees. Keanu didn't laugh. "Instead," he said, "I talk to the ocean sometimes. It's the only thing that listens without interrupting." Joaquin nodded slowly. "That's why I come here. This tree was here the day my brother died. It was here when I couldn't speak at his funeral. And now, I come here when the weight returns." Keanu felt a shift in the air. It's not cold, but heavy. Joaquin had never spoken about his grief like this in public. Not like this. Not so raw. Keanu didn't speak. He didn't have to. Sometimes silence was the most respectful thing you could offer someone. After a long pause, Joaquin continued, "People see the red carpets, the roles, the applause. They don't see the moments in between, the nights that don't end. The voices in your head asking if you're enough. The guilt for surviving, for succeeding, for living when others didn't." His voice cracked, but he didn't cry. The pain had gone beyond tears. It had turned into something deeper, quiet sadness that had learned how to live inside him. Keanu looked at the tree. Its roots were thick and twisted, but strong, grounded. He reached out and touched the bark gently, like it was an old friend. "Do you ever feel like you owe the world more than you can give?" Joaquin asked. Keanu didn't answer right away. Then he said, "I used to, till I realized the world doesn't need everything from me. Just something honest, something true." Joaquin turned his head slowly, meeting his eyes. "And what is that for you?" Keanu thought about it, then said softly, "Kindness. Not the big gestures, just small moments. Being present." Like this, they stood under the tree as the sky grew darker. Something had shifted between them. Not just recognition, but connection. Not just to actors, but to men who had lived through pain, fame, love, and laws. Somehow kept going. "I never told anyone about this place," Joaquin said, "but you. You didn't need directions." Keanu smiled. They were both looking for the same kind of silence. Joaquin let out a breath that sounded like relief. As the stars began to peek through the night sky, the two men sat beneath the tree. No cameras, no lights, just two souls, healing in the presence of something older, something rooted. "What do you say to the tree?" Keanu asked gently. Joaquin looked up, eyes thoughtful. "I say thank you for remembering, for standing still when the world spins too fast, for not judging the broken parts." Keanu nodded slowly, then closed his eyes and whispered, "Thank you." And for the first time in a long time, they both felt a little less alone. The roots we buried the next morning came quietly. The wind was softer, the ocean a little calmer, as if the world itself had decided to speak in whispers. Keanu woke up early in the small guest cabin he'd found just off the main road the night. Before, he hadn't planned to stay overnight, but something about that encounter with Joaquin had changed his direction. He couldn't leave just yet, not until he understood what pulled him here. He made coffee, no sugar, no milk, just black, the way he liked it when he needed to feel grounded. Then he walked back down the path toward the cliffside oak tree. And somehow, he wasn't surprised to find Joaquin already there, seated with his back against the trunk, legs crossed, eyes closed. Keanu didn't say anything, simply sat beside him, letting the silence speak first. After a few moments, Joaquin opened his eyes and turned his head slightly. "You came back." Keanu gave a slow nod. "I didn't want to, but I couldn't not." Joaquin smiled faintly. The kind of smile you give when you understand something without needing to explain it. "Do you believe trees remember?" Joaquin asked, tracing the lines in the bark with his fingertips. "I think they carry stories," Keanu replied. "They listen, but they don't interrupt. They grow quietly even when no one's watching." Joaquin nodded. "I used to come here with River, back when we were just kids. He'd talk to this tree like it was his oldest friend, told it things he couldn't tell anyone else. I thought it was silly, till he was gone, and then I came back. I sat here, and suddenly it wasn't silly anymore." Keanu looked out over the cliff, the sea stretching endlessly in front of them. "You never really let go, did you?" "Ow," Joaquin whispered. "And maybe that's okay." There was a long pause. Not awkward, not heavy, just full of unspoken things. "I saw your interview a few years ago," Keanu said softly. "The one where you said grief never leaves it, just changes form." Joaquin looked over. "I meant every word." "I know," Keanu said, "because I feel it too." Air between them grew dense with memories neither of them had spoken aloud in years. Pain is a quiet travel. It shows up at unexpected times, like a shadow that never forgets where you live. Joaquin leaned back, staring at the sky through the branches. "I think fame teaches you how to smile without feeling. People see the smile and assume you're okay. But sometimes it's just armor." Keanu nodded. "I know what it's like to lose someone and still be expected to show up, to sign autographs, to perform, to pretend." "Do you still pretend?" Joaquin asked. Keanu took a breath. "Less now. I've learned it's okay to disappear sometimes, to stop performing, to just be." Joaquin closed his eyes for a moment. "That's what this place is for me. It's where I stop pretending." The wind shifted, and a few leaves drifted down around them. Keanu reached into his coat pocket and pulled out something small. It was a folded piece of paper, worn at the edges. He handed it to Joaquin. "What's this?" Joaquin asked, unfolding. A letter I wrote to someone I lost," Keanu said. "But I never sent it. Never had the courage." Joaquin read it quietly. The words were simple, honest, full of hurt and love and everything in between. When he finished, he looked up, eyes glassy. "You been carrying this with you all this time?" Keanu nodded. "Not just in my pocket." Connie handed it back, but Keanu shook his head. "No, you keep it. Maybe you'll write your own." They sat there, the letter resting on Joaquin's lap like a piece of a shared burden. "People think we're lucky," Joaquin said after a while. "They see the lights, the awards, the headlines, but they don't see the silence that follows, the ache that doesn't go away." Keanu's voice was calm but steady. "That's why we talk to trees." They both laughed a little. Not because it was funny, but because it was true. What would happen, Joaquin asked, if we told the world the truth? About grief, about loneliness, about how hard it is to keep going sometimes. Keanu looked up at the branches above. Maybe someone would feel less alone. Maybe someone would stop pretending, too. Joaquin stood up slowly, brushing leaves from his jeans. Then maybe it's time we start talking. Keanu looked up at him. Are you ready for that? No, Joaquin admitted, but maybe I don't need to be. Maybe I just need to be honest. They walked away from the tree together that morning, not in silence, but in quiet understanding. Something had changed. It's not healed, not fixed, but changed. As they reached the main road, Keanu stopped and looked back. Do you think the tree will miss us? Joaquin smiled. It remembers. That's enough. Keanu nodded. Let's come back tomorrow. We'll bring coffee, Joaquin said. Black Keanu added with a small grin. Always. And they walked away, not as two strangers passing in the dark, but as two souls who had found in each other a reason to speak again. A truth to quiet next morning. The clouds hung lower than usual. Gray but not angry. Just thoughtful. The sky felt heavy, like it was carrying something it hadn't figured out how to say yet. Keanu pulled into the same gravel clearing near the cliffside oak, 2 coffees in hand. Joaquin was already there, sitting with his back against the tree like it had always been his place, his refuge. He turned his head as Keanu approached. You remembered the coffee? Keanu handed him one. Black. No cream. No distractions. Joaquin gave a faint smile. Good. I like things simple when everything else isn't. They sat in silence for a while, sipping coffee, listening to the ocean crash quietly below. The tree creaked gently above them like it was joining the conversation. I had a dream last night, Joaquin said. Keanu looked over. What was it? I was a boy again, and River was with me. We were climbing this tree. It was easier back. Then, lighter. We laughed so much I could feel it in my chest even after I woke up. Keanu didn't say anything, but his eyes were soft. Listening eyes. When I woke up, Joaquin continued. I thought, what if all this pain we carry is just love with nowhere to go? Keanu took a deep breath. I've thought about that too. Doesn't go away. It just ... waits. Stared out at the sea. Do you ever feel like the world expects you to be healed by now? Keanu nodded slowly. It's like there's a timer on your grief. It's like if too much time passes, people stop asking how you are. And if you still feel broken, it's your fault. Yes, Joaquin whispered. Exactly that. The wind picked up, lifting leaves and stories off the ground. Keanu placed his coffee down beside him and spoke with a voice steady but raw. When I lost her, he began. I couldn't even look at a sunrise for weeks. Everything beautiful reminded me she wasn't here to see it. I'd sit in silence for hours, thinking if I stayed quiet long enough, maybe she'd return in the stillness. Joaquin didn't interrupt. He just nodded, letting Keanu's words settle like dust on stone. I never told anyone that, Keanu said. Why now? Joaquin asked softly. Keanu looked toward the tree. Because you did first. They sat together, 2 men who had carried invisible weights for years, finally letting some of it down. Joaquin reached into his pocket and pulled out the folded letter Keanu had given him the day before. I read it again this morning. Every word felt like something I've been too afraid to say. Maybe it's time you wrote one of your own, Keanu offered. Joaquin nodded. I tried. But when I started writing, I realized I didn't know who I was writing to. Was it River? Was it myself? Was it the version of me that never recovered? Keanu leaned forward. Maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe it's just about writing, about saying what's been buried for too long. Joaquin looked down at the paper, his fingers tightening around it. Do you ever think, maybe we weren't meant to be fixed? Keanu's voice was quiet. I think we're meant to grow around the cracks, like trees do. There was something so deeply true in that moment that neither of them said anything for a while. Joaquin finally unfolded the paper, found a pen in his coat, and began to write. Not fast, Not urgent. Just honest. Keanu sat beside him, guarding the silence. As Joaquin wrote, his hand trembled, but he didn't stop. The words came slow, like they were being pulled from places long ignored. And when he finished, he folded the paper and tucked it into a hollow in the tree's trunk. It stays here, Joaquin said. It belongs to the one who listened the longest. Keanu nodded, eyes wet but smiling, and it'll never tell a soul. They stood and walked away again. But this time, something had shifted inside Joaquin. He walked straighter, not lighter, but freer. As they reached the dirt path leading back to the road, Joaquin stopped. Keanu, yeah, you ever think? We were brought here for a reason? Keanu didn't hesitate. Every day, Joaquin looked back at the tree one last time, then maybe. ... We're not done yet. Keanu nodded. Not even close. And so, they made a quiet promise without speaking it aloud, to return, to keep showing up, and to keep writing the things they never thought they could. The ones we carry forth morning came with soft rain. It's not enough to chase someone indoors, but enough to make the world smell like wet soil and forgotten stories. Keanu stood at the edge of the road with an umbrella in one hand and a paper bag in the other. Joaquin arrived a few minutes later, wrapped in a gray hoodie, his hands buried deep in his pockets. You brought breakfast? Joaquin asked, raising an eyebrow as he looked at the bag. Banana bread, Keanu said. I figured even sadness needs carbs. Joaquin chuckled lightly, accepting the bag. Thank God it's not another green juice. They walked in quiet. Steps down the familiar path, the rain made the leaves glisten, and the old tree looked stronger somehow, like it had soaked in every word they'd ever shared and had grown taller from it. I read something last night, Joaquin said once. They sat down. An old journal entry from when I was 21. I'd written, someday I'll stop being afraid of being seen. Keanu turned toward him. And have you? Joaquin looked down. Not fully, but maybe a little more than before. What? Keanu nodded. Being seen is scary, especially when people don't see the whole of you. Just the parts they want. Exactly, Joaquin whispered. They see a role, a speech, a photo. But they don't see the panic backstage, the trembling hands, the voice that breaks when no one's around. They don't see the person who has to carry all those expectations home, Keanu added. Alone. Joaquin looked up at the tree. I wonder what it would say if it could speak. Keanu smiled. Probably something like, you're doing better than you think. They both laughed, but it was soft. It's not from humor, but from the relief of imagining such kindness spoken aloud. After a long pause, Joaquin pulled something from his hoodie. Pocket. It was a small, flat stone with the word remember scratched into it. I carved this when I was 15, he said. After River left, I used to keep it under my pillow. Then one day I stopped looking at it. Keanu took the stone, gently in his hand. You remembered it now? Yeah, Joaquin said. I think I'm ready to carry him again. Not as pain, but as presence. So, I thought the rider would, said after a moment. I used to stare at her while she slept, just to remind myself the world could still make something beautiful. Joaquin turned slowly. You had a daughter? Keanu nodded. For a short time, she passed before she even got to open her eyes. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was full of all the things words couldn't carry. I'm sorry, Joaquin said, his voice cracking. Thank you, Keanu replied. I used to think speaking about her would break me. I think forgetting her would. Joaquin reached over and gently squeezed Keanu's shoulder. She mattered. Even for a moment, she mattered. Keanu's eyes glistened, but he didn't. Turn away. She still does. The rain had stopped by then, but the earth was still soft beneath them. Keanu pulled out a small notebook and a pen from his coat. "What's that?" Joaquin asked. "Something I started writing yesterday. I don't know if it's a letter or a story, or just a bunch of scattered thoughts. Can I hear it?" Keanu hesitated, then opened the notebook. He read, "I don't know how to let go of the things that shaped me, but maybe I don't need to. Maybe healing doesn't mean erasing. Maybe it means remembering without falling apart." When he finished, Joaquin was silent, but his face said more than words ever could. "Can I borrow that?" he asked quietly. Keanu handed it over. "You can write in it if you want." Joaquin nodded and took the notebook with both hands, like he was holding something sacred. They sat there for hours, passing the notebook back and forth, writing things they hadn't said in years. No rules, no filters, just truth as the sun peeked through the clouds and the day turned warmer. Joaquin closed the notebook and placed it gently into the hollow of the tree. Next to his letter from the day before, "This tree knows more about us than most people do," he said. "And it never asked for anything in return," Keanu added. Joaquin stood up slowly and stretched. "Do you think people can become like trees?" "I think some already are," Keanu said. "They stand through storms. They break. Quietly, but grow again." "Maybe that's what we're trying to do," Joaquin said, smiling. "Grow again?" As they walked back toward the road, Keanu asked, "What do you want to do with all these words we've been writing?" Joaquin thought for a moment. "Maybe nothing. Maybe just leave them here. But maybe, someday, someone else will sit by this tree, and they'll read our words and feel less alone." Keanu nodded. "That's enough." And for the first time in years, they weren't just walking away from pain. They were walking toward something new. The stranger who knew their numbest air was different that morning. Lighter, almost like the tree had shared its weight with the wind. Keanu arrived first this time, holding a new notebook under his arm and a small blanket folded neatly over his shoulder. He set everything down by the tree, then leaned his back against the bark, looking out toward the ocean that always seemed to listen without ever answering. Joaquin arrived not long after. This time, he brought something with him, too a small speaker playing soft classical music and a thermos full of warm tea. "You're early," he said with a half-dash smile. Keanu looked over. "I wanted to sit with the quiet for a while. It feels different here now." Joaquin settled down beside him. "Yeah, it's like the tree knows we're coming now." They shared the tea and the music, and for a while that was enough. They didn't need to talk. They just needed to be there, like two old friends visiting the same sacred place each day. But then, something unexpected happened. A figure appeared on the path, a man, maybe in his late 30s, with a worn backpack and tired eyes. He stopped. When he saw them and looked at the tree like he recognized it, like it had been waiting for him, Keanu and Joaquin both turned, alert but not alarmed. The man spoke first. "I'm sorry, ... I didn't think anyone else would be here. I've been looking for this tree for years." Joaquin stood slowly. "You know this place?" The man stepped forward, removing his hat. "I lost my brother 5 years ago. Someone online once wrote about a tree on a cliff where people leave letters, where people talk and heal. I thought it was a myth." Keanu looked at Joaquin, stunned. Then he turned back to the man. "What's your name, Dylan?" he said. "Don't want to intrude. I just... I had to see if it was real." Keanu gestured for him to come closer. "You're not intruding." Joaquin nodded. We've been coming here for a while now. The tree doesn't belong to us. It belongs to anyone who needs it." Dylan stepped forward slowly, his eyes full of something they both recognized. Grief. That hadn't found a home yet. "I've been carrying a letter," Dylan said, his voice cracking. "But I didn't know where to put it. I didn't know if it mattered." Keanu pointed to the hollow in the tree. "It matters. Leave it here if you want." Dylan walked forward like he was approaching an altar. He reached into his backpack and pulled out a folded piece of paper, edges worn soft from being handled so often. With trembling hands, he placed it inside the hollow. Then he sat down beside them, saying nothing. The three men sat under the tree in silence. Different stories. Same ache. And slowly, something passed between them, not spoken, but understood. After a while, Dylan asked, "Do you ever stop feeling guilty for surviving?" "Shh." Joaquin answered softly, "I haven't. But I've learned to live with the guilt. Not to. Let it decide who I am." Keanu added, "We're not here to forget the ones we lost. We're here to carry them with us in a way that doesn't break us." Dylan wiped a tear from his cheek. "I never thought I'd meet anyone who understood." That Joaquin looked up at the tree. This place is full of voices, not loud ones, but true ones. Keanu reached for the notebook he'd brought. "We've been writing here. Letters, thoughts, memories. Maybe someday we'll leave it for others." Dylan looked at them both, eyes wide. "Can I write something?" Keanu handed him the notebook without hesitation. "That's why we brought it." As Dylan began to write, Joaquin leaned toward Keanu and whispered, "We didn't find this place. It found us." Keanu nodded. "And now it's finding others. The three of them. Strangers by chance, brothers by pain." When the sun began to dip behind the clouds, Dylan stood up. "Thank you," he said quietly. "For not turning me away," Joaquin replied. "This tree doesn't turn anyone away, eh?" Dylan placed a hand gently on the bark. "I'll come back. Not because I need to, but because I want to." Keanu smiled. "You'll be welcome, always." As Dylan disappeared down the path, Joaquin turned to Keanu. "You think this is the start of something?" Keanu looked at the tree, then at the hollow where now 3 letters rested. "I think this is already something." That evening, as they packed up, they noticed something small carved into the bark near the hollow. It was new, just one word. Stay. Neither of them had done it. Dylan hadn't either, but someone had. Someone from before. Someone who had also once needed this place and left a message for those who came after. Joaquin touched the carving gently. "This place really remembers." Keanu nodded, his voice full of awe. "And maybe now we will too." The healing we leave behind sky was clear on the final morning. No clouds, no wind, just soft sunlight spreading through the trees, warming the earth like a gentle hand. Keanu arrived first, again, with a new notebook and a small wooden box. His steps were steady, but his heart felt full, like the world had shifted. It's just a little, and he was finally ready to accept the change. He placed the box near the base of the old oak tree, then sat down with his back resting against the bark. He closed his eyes and let the silence fill him, the kind of silence that felt alive. Joaquin arrived shortly after, this time wearing a peaceful look on his face that Keanu hadn't seen before. He carried a small plant in a clay pot, something green, something new. "I thought maybe this tree shouldn't be alone anymore," Joaquin said, kneeling to place the pot nearby. "Every strong soul deserves company." Keanu smiled. "You look lighter." "I feel lighter," Joaquin said. "I feel like I don't have to carry it all by myself." They sat in their usual place, letting the quiet hold them like a blanket. After a while, Keanu opened the wooden box, revealing all the letters, notebooks, and pieces of writing they had left behind over the weeks. He had collected every page, every memory, every whispered truth. "What's the plan?" Joaquin asked. "Gently. I want to leave this here," Keanu said. "Bury it. Not to forget it, but to plant it like roots. So if someone else finds this place, they'll know they're not alone." Joaquin nodded, deeply moved. "A time capsule for broken hearts." "Or for healing ones," Keanu said. Together, they dug a small hole near the base of the tree. Careful, not to disturb its roots. They placed the box inside gently, like it was a sleeping child, then covered it with earth and scattered wildflower seeds on top. "You think anyone will find it?" Joaquin asked. "I think the right people always do," Keanu replied. They stood back and admired their work. The tree stood tall, its bark now a mosaic of old carvings, letters tucked inside its hollow and now hidden beneath the soil. A box full of pain turned into peace. After a while, Joaquin said, "I want to tell you something. It's something I haven't told anyone." Keanu turned to him, listening. "The day you found me here, I wasn't okay," Joaquin said. "I didn't know if I could keep going. I had reached a place so dark, I couldn't see anything ahead. But when you walked up that path, it felt like someone turned on a light." Keanu didn't speak, just reached out and placed a hand on Joaquin's shoulder. "You saved me," Joaquin whispered, "not by fixing me, but by sitting with me." Keanu's voice cracked slightly. "You saved me too." They embraced quietly, nothing loud or dramatic. Just two men who had found each other in the middle of quiet pain and decided to stay as the sun reached its peak. They stood at the edge of the cliff, side by side, watching the endless blue of the ocean stretch out before them. "What now?" Joaquin asked. Keanu smiled. "Now we live. Fully, not perfectly. Just honestly." Joaquin nodded. "And we come back always." They walked away from the tree for the last time that summer, not because they were leaving it behind, but because they had finally taken what they needed. The peace, the understanding, the silence that speaks without words, and the tree remained, as it always had, steady, listening, full of roots and stories. Months later, a young woman wandering through grief would find the same tree. She'd sit down, broken and lost. In time, she'd notice something growing beside her, a small plant in a clay pot. Wildflowers blooming around it, and a faint carving on the bark that read, "Stay." And the healing would begin again.